From Content 360, this is the state of client acquisition. Welcome to the state of client acquisition. This is your host, Michael Bohannes. Today I want to talk about inspiration versus gradual improvement. We are often faced with something inspiring, a story of somebody who overcame the odds and succeeded. It really moves us. And so we take action. We want to sort of, in our minds, in the deep recess of our minds, we become the little boy, little girl who then wants to become Superman, and we somehow see ourselves as the hero. This is also, of course, what great films and good stories are made of. And then it kind of peters out. I'm sure we all have experienced that. So in today's episode, I wanted to explore the relationship of inspirational content and how we can use it to become better at what we're doing. So without further ado, let's get right into this week's episode. When was the first time that you watched Rocky, if you ever watched it? I'm personally quite a sucker for these kind of inspirational movies. And I remember when I watched Rocky for the first time, I was 8 or 9 years old. And then you can imagine for a lifetime after that, I was carrying logs and I was frustrated that there was no mountain I could run up on in the snow and so on. And when I say a lifetime, it's approximately a week before the Rocky fever abandoned me again. And that is the effect that inspirational movies or inspirational books have on us. It's this kind of, oh God, I'm going to change my life because this story has so impacted me, and I'm going to stop drinking, or I'm going to, lose weight finally, or something like that. And then we try to make drastic changes, and then it all falls down at one piece at a time. And the movie that I watched recently, it was the Pursuit of Happyness. I hadn't watched it. It's a 2006 or 7 movie, I believe, with Will Smith, and it's about how, if you, one of the few people like myself who's been living under a rock and hasn't seen it, it's about how a guy who, through a series of bad decisions, gets himself into a situation where he's homeless with his 5-year-old son. And then, of course, in the end, he wins and makes it big, and it's based on a real life story. And the movie resonated with me a lot because there were times in my business where I felt, of course, nothing close to being homeless, but I felt a similar sense of dread of where the next month's revenue is going to come from, as I think most entrepreneurs have at some point. And that's why the movie kind of, it went quite deep. And at some point I was like walking around really uneasy, and I felt like, I cannot watch this. So it's funny. It's like I spent some time pacing around while watching the movie. And the film is very inspirational in the sense that you think, if a man can survive a situation like this, then I for sure can get through my tiny, ridiculous little problems that I have. And that's a good effect that the movie has on you. That's wonderful. But I think, and that's why it's wonderful to have a mindset coach as a wife, we talked about it afterwards with my wife, and I figured out that one of the mistakes that I used to make when I saw something inspirational, it could have been a movie, could have been also just a webinar from a really good sales coach or marketing coach, that I said, okay, I'm just going to change. I'm going to do this now. This is going to be my thing. The most recent example that I can imagine was when I had my content marketing business, and I read Russell Brunson's book, .com Secrets, and I decided, okay, I'm going to build funnels now. That's going to be my thing. I'm going to build funnels for people. And that was one of those rocky moments when, okay, I'm going to just change everything that I do, and then it just didn't go anywhere because it abandoned me, and the change was too drastic. So how can we avoid that Rocky effect? I actually remember, speaking of Rocky, I remember that for a while I did look at ways how I could fill sand. I even filled sand into a backpack so that I have something to dangle from a door or a hook on the ceiling so that I can also box into it and so on. And then I didn't do it well, and it didn't really work, so I abandoned it. Typical 9-year-old stuff that you just, something else catches your attention. So How can we avoid the Rocky effect? I believe that the secret is really to be found in incrementalism. You use the inspiration of the film, the webinar, the movie, the book, whatever you've seen, and have it fuel your currently imperfect situation to make it gradually better. It really is important to because we are both emotional and rational beings, use that emotion that you've experienced when watching this stuff and use it as fuel to only gradually improve. And after talking about this with my wife, here's what I've done as an example. Just immediately after watching the film, so the next day, I changed up my morning routine. I get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I always have this unpleasant downtime after I do I usually take a picture of my watch and then just put some inspirational quote there. And then I go for a run with my dog. And I've always had this, because I'm very low discipline in the morning after I get up, I always procrastinated because I'm sitting there at my computer after I uploaded the picture, and I kind of end up going to news sites and just checking mail and WhatsApp and LinkedIn and so on. And that's a very bad idea. So I changed up my routine so that now my watch is downstairs, my phone is charging downstairs, so I have to go downstairs. I only upload it to LinkedIn, and off I go for a run. With this, I've essentially shaved off 20 minutes of procrastination time, and it's great because I now also have time to go to the gym before my son wakes up. So that is a small, gradual, incremental change that I've made, and I use the fuel from the movie, which really cut close to the bone with me, to become better in this small way. And ironically, the incrementalism cuts both ways. In the film, it's kind of one, sometimes a big one, sometimes a small one, bad decision after another that the hero makes that gets him into real trouble. And that is also, by the way, one thing that is related to one thing I criticize about the film, because it makes it appear, it sends the message that escaping a situation like homelessness is only possible if you make this Hail Mary pass, this one fell swoop decision that is going to make or break everything. And if you haven't seen the movie, then quick spoiler alert now. In the movie, Will Smith, who at this point at the beginning of the movie, he's already in quite a bit of financial trouble. And he exacerbates the situation by taking on an unpaid 6-month internship, at the end of which there's a 5% chance that he will get hired at a well-paid job. And of course, it being Hollywood, he gets it at the end, so here's your spoiler. But I think this is where a lot of entrepreneurial misery is created. This is not how you get out of homelessness. And I'm not speaking from experience, of course, I have not been there, but I have an acquaintance who has founded a charity to help homeless people get out of their predicament. And really the way how to do it is small incremental changes. Get up at a reasonable time, stay when you're in a shelter, get dressed well, good hygiene. And then when you're looking for a job, just make it sure that you only take the immediate next step. Create something of a resume, and that you spend that, and then overcome the inhibition to submit that resume, and so on. You do it really tiny step by tiny step, and you build on your past successes. You don't escape homelessness by making a Hail Mary pass at working in a Wall Street firm. Sorry, it's just that's Hollywood stuff. And I think this is where a lot of entrepreneurial misery is created, and this kind of Hail Mary thinking. And I was there myself, as the Russell Brunson book, Inspiration, I'm going to build funnels now, testifies. And so the real message that I want to give in this episode today is incrementalism. Start with something that already somehow works. If it's a client acquisition method, like the one that I advocate for people who are starting at relative zero, when you are $5,000 monthly revenue or less, and you want to grow it, you want to grow your business, then I would strongly recommend that you start with starting friendly conversations with strangers. If you do it well, they will respond to you. Some of them will jump on a call with you. And then if you do good exploration, you see what they're struggling with and you offer them help. Some of them will hire you. It's going to happen. And this is about starting at a really low level and then gradually improving. You add a stranger and you celebrate when he accepts your invitation. And then you send them a message. The most will not respond, but at some point one will respond. Celebrate that milestone. Once they respond, explore whether they have a problem that you could help them with. Don't present them what you do yet. Just simply talk to them about their challenges. And if they admit to having those challenges, yoo-hoo, that's another thing to celebrate. Then you ask them if they would like to go on a quick call with you just to explore. If they say yes, again celebrate. Most will say no. And so on. You see my point. Gradual improvement. So this is also how I work with my clients. I have one client who started with, I don't want to say too much. I don't want him to think that I talk about him here. But essentially, he starts at a very low level. He didn't really know how to conduct conversations. He didn't do no content experience, and we are simply growing his presence bit by bit. So just now we started out at a very low response rate. Today we celebrated the fact that he has a 30 to 40% response rate on his messages. That's amazing. He started at like virtually nothing, not being able to get people to get calls. Now his respondents to call held ratio is almost half of what mine is. So that's great. This great progress. And this is how real success is built, bit by bit. So the thing I criticized about the film was that the hero makes his Hail Mary pass, and of course it wouldn't make for great Hollywood if he were to simply take a job at a McDonald's and then gradually work his way up and then get a better job and so on, pay off his debt and so on. That wouldn't make for a good Hollywood film, so I get it, but this is unfortunately what I, in my more naive times, and I think many other people who have not really built a business before will take away from that you need these kind of Hail Mary passes. And the reality is, it's all about the incremental improvement. So I hope this was useful. I'll talk to you next week. The State of Client Acquisition is a Content 360 production. Music by Gavin Knox Grand. To sign up for alerts and to submit written and audio questions, go to stateofclientacquisition.com. I'll talk to you in the next episode.
Montreal girls in the tail end of winter. Caffeine burns, wide awake dreams and color. Blood on my hands in this open heart journey. And infinite numbers, rapid fire across the country. We slide tonight.